46 years, I've been obsessed with the question of what makes the difference in the quality of people's lives. Why is it there's some people, you can give them everything. I mean, everything they could possibly imagine. They get love from their family. They have support. They have money. They have education. They have opportunity. And many of those people, not all, but many of those people end up spending their life going in and out of rehab. I'm sure you could think of some names right off the top of your head, famous people. On the other side, you can think of people that life has just been brutal to, where they've experienced nothing but injustice or abuse. And yet many of those people become the stories that inspire us most, the Oprahs of the world. So one thing I learned early on, and I learned this not because I was so smart, I learned this because also I wanted the answer. It wasn't I was an intellectual. I had a pretty rough life. I grew up in a very poor environment financially, but also poor emotionally. My mom's a great lady, but I had 4 different fathers, so they didn't all quite agree. And I remember one day I went to my mom and said, I'm confused, which one is my dad? And I wasn't the kid in school that was the most popular kid in school, not even slightly. But I noticed the most popular kid in school treated my friends and I like we were dirt. And I was like, it made me want to understand the human psyche. It made me want to become kind of a practical psychologist. I had to be to deal with my mom too, because she drank alcohol to excess, unfortunately. She's a great woman, but then when she had a prescription drug, she got pretty violent. So, I had some experiences that were quite brutal. But my mom has since passed. I didn't even talk about this until one day I was working with this group of kids in New York that all were from single parent households, mostly African-American, Hispanic kids. And I'm this tall white guy. What could I possibly know what they went through? So I told them the whole story, the liquid soap down my throat, the throwing up, the bashing my head, all these things. And they were crying their eyes out. But I was able to get across to them that biography is not destiny. That where you've been does not determine where you have to go. And that's the most important lesson I think we can all get in our lives. And so I wanted answers. I wanted to know what that difference was in people. And I had no one around me as role models. So I became a voracious reader. I even took a speed reading class when I was still in high school, my sophomore year, freshman year. And I wanted to read a book a day. I didn't do that. But I read about 700 books in 7 years. I was obsessed. Anything that could improve your life physically, mentally, emotionally, your body. And then I tried to apply it. And I started with me being overweight as a kid, and I lost the weight, and it changed my relationship with girls, which definitely incentivizes you in high school at that stage. And then I helped my friends, and then I got hooked on having answers to help my friends as well. And then it grew from that area. But it started with me looking for those answers, and it started, quite frankly, with a seminar. It's why I know the power of this kind of education, because a lot of people don't read, or they read partially, they don't act on it, because it's missing the movement, the emotion that comes when someone's looking in your eye and sharing from their heart and soul, like Matthew has done here. And so the bottom line is, I was working for this man on the weekends, still in high school, moving furniture, because my dad told me this guy used to be such a loser and now he was successful. And I was like, I want to learn what he does. So I'm moving this furniture. He used to flip houses in the late 70s in Orange County, California. And so I'm moving. He goes, you're a hard worker. And he said, have lunch with me. And so I had lunch with him. I said, can I ask you a question? I said, my dad said you used to be such a loser. Now you're so successful. Only a kid can say this, right? And I wasn't being harsh. And I said, how'd you do that? And he said, your dad said, what? And he said, well, it's pretty true. And he said, well, it all changed because I went to a seminar. And I said, what's a seminar? And I never even heard of such a thing. He said, well, a man takes his life experience, 30 or 40 years of his life, 25 years of life, and he shares you the best of what he's learned and show you the shortcuts, what you need to face, what you need to do, how to get there quicker. And I said, wow. He goes, yeah, he shows you what his failures and successes and what worked. And he does that all in one night? Yeah, in 3.5 hours. I said, could you get me in? He goes, yes. And he never said anything else. I said, well, will you? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, well, because you got to pay for it. You won't value it. I go, no, I'm working as a janitor. I'm in high school. It's like, trust me, I'll value it. He goes, no. How much is it? $35. It'd be $400 in today's dollars, to give you an idea. $35. I was making $40 a week as a janitor. So I was like, that's a week's pay. He goes, okay, well then don't go and learn on your own and take decades to figure out and maybe never figure it out. It's up to you. So I made at the time what I thought was the most intense decision of my life. And, looking back on it, it wasn't a big decision, but it was one of the more important ones. It was the first time I decided to invest in myself. And I went to this seminar by Jim Rohn, and I'd read a lot of the books he was talking about, and I was finishing some of his phrases, and people at the table, look at this kid, I was so crazy passionate about these things. And sure enough, as I listened, he taught me some simple things that still ring true today. And one of those things was, for things to change, you got to change. Everybody wants things to change, but that's not how it works. In fact, by the way, change, you don't have to work at it these days. Change is automatic, right? As time goes by, the economy's going to change. You can guarantee that. Relationships are going to change. Your body's going to change. No matter what you do, there's going to be change. Change is automatic. Progress is not. And I realized progress means for things to get better for me, I got to get better. And the great lesson he gave me is he said, Tony, you got to learn to work harder on yourself than your job. You got to learn to become a more valuable human being. You got to get the skills that matter.